So hello, everyone. Welcome back to this wonderful weekly group that we have for the loved ones of anyone experiencing domestic violence or intimate partner violence. I am Vince. I am Linda. I was I am Vincent. I'm Linda, and of course, this is my wonderful husband, Vincent. And we are the co-founders and directors of Christ Center Empowerment for Families. We are reaching people a different way by providing prevention, education, and support to anyone who knows someone who might be in an unsafe relationship. We say most of our trainings and also even this support we have here is geared toward, once again, the loved ones of the survivor. And so today we're going to do something a little bit, well, not really, it's not different. We're going to talk about the 12 reasons why couples coaching and couples counseling or couples therapy is not recommended when domestic violence is present. And we're not just talking about physical violence. We're talking about all the aspects, all the different types of domestic violence that can exist. And at some point we'll go through each one. But we're not just talking physical. We're talking about emotional, verbal, property damage, financial abuse, all of that. There's a whole bunch. So right now we're focusing on the 12 reasons why counseling, coaching, therapy is not recommended with couples together where there is indeed domestic violence. And like I always like to do is I always want to start out and I want to share a working definition of exactly what is domestic violence. So domestic violence is a pattern of coercive behaviors that are played out in a cycle. And they're all designed to gain and maintain power and control over another person in the context of an intimate relationship. That is your working definition of domestic violence. Or we hear domestic violence all the time, but also within some of the advocacy circles, we also say intimate partner violence. All right. So actually, once again, we're going to focus on the 12 reasons why couples coaching, couples counseling, couples therapy is not recommended. So Vincent is going to actually just he's going to read some things off, just some statements, and then together he and I are going to have a conversation about the actual statement. Okay, so you ready, honey?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So, statement number 1. Focusing on the relationship assumes that each person contributes to the abusive behavior, when in truth, the perpetrator is solely responsible for his or her abusive behavior.
And when I think about this statement, you guys, what comes to mind for me is that because of the interesting complexities and nuances of a personality trait, if you will, that is misusing their personal power and powering up over another person in an intimate relationship, is there's this tendency for them that they're gleaning or gaining as much information as they can from their partner, who in this case is indeed the victim. I need to make it simple for me. So I'm going to say victim, I'm going to say abuser, right? And whether it be a male or female, what winds up happening is they will gather and collect the information from the counseling session, the abuser room. And eventually, not only will they potentially, and they can't help it, will use that information against the victim. But another thing will happen too, is they'll work very, very hard at almost like a pulling in of the counselor into their way of into their view and their way of thinking. And all the while the victim is sitting there knowing that there's certain things he or she cannot say because they already know it's going to be used against him. And if it's a really good counselor, they'll be able to pick up on there's something different happening here. But the flow of it, because you can't pull something out of a person that they don't want. If they don't want to share it, they're not going to share it. So therefore, all these counseling sessions are going on, and the person who's gaining the information that they can later use really is the perpetrator, right? It really is the one who is doing the perpetrating violence, right? So does that make sense, Vincent? Any other?
Yep. Oh, that works. I like this other question because I think it gets to the meat of this conversation. We might as well dive in quickly here. Often in couples counseling, there is no assessment for violence. If an assessment is done with both people present, the potential for honest disclosure will be undermined.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because, when people show up for couples counseling, that counselor is focusing on what they know to do and how they address couples counseling. This idea of opening up a platform where there's going to be honest communication. Everyone's going to be honest. They're going to speak their truth. They're going to share their feelings. They're going to share their emotion. They're going to share, right, exactly what's going on within them, right? And so if that's happening and there is indeed emotional, verbal, psychological, financial, all these other abuses happening behind closed doors, then what that's going to do is it's going to make it more damaging, like I just said earlier. So to go into, I'm going to just say this, I think it's a travesty for any counselor to open up and have couples counseling without first really doing an assessment. And if they're not able to do an assessment, send somebody someplace where they can have an assessment done. Send the couple, they can each individually answer some questions and determine if there is indeed domestic violence. Once again, I think this goes back to the thought of, domestic violence is it's physical. And a lot of times those questions are around like physical abuse, but there's far worse things that can happen within a context of a marriage where there's abuse than actual physical violence.
What so are some of the questions or some of the things they're looking for in the assessment?
Yeah. Within the assessment, I would say kind of what would be like, not necessarily a number one question, because they'd be with another, however order it needs to be in. Probably one of the most common questions I think that people are used to hearing would be, has your partner ever put their hands on you, to hurt you? That would be one. Do you feel like this is such an old phrase, but still it works, it's out there. Do you ever feel like you have to walk on eggshells around your partner? Right? Are you afraid of what might happen if your partner gets mad or gets angry? Right? Has your partner ever threatened to physically hurt you? Maybe they haven't done it yet, but if they're threatened to physically harm you, right? And then also another question as you get deeper and deeper is, does your partner, your husband, wife, own a gun? Right? Have they ever threatened you with a gun? Have they ever threatened to commit suicide? Right? Have they ever threatened to harm a family pet, or have they harmed a family pet? Right? If there are children in the home, are the children, somewhat afraid of the father or the wife, whichever one, it doesn't matter. The series of questions. Another question is the person currently employed? Are they employed or are they not employed? Right? That's a big one. Also, do you have children in the house that are not the children of the partner? Like, in other words, is there a father? You get it, right? Is there a child that's not the child of the mother or the father in the house? As bizarre as these things are, they all kind of add up to a potentially abusive scenario, abusive situation. There's actually, and I don't have it with me, but there's also something called a danger assessment, which is, it's really deep. I do not have it with me. I thought I did, but I do not. But we can actually go over that another time, because that actually goes over all the questions that can be asked to provide that kind of assessment. And I think that it should be given the same way we go to the doctor's office now. You fill out for your physical a sheet that has a plethora of questions like, do you use drugs? Do you use alcohol? How much alcohol do you use? How much drugs are you using? How many sexual partners have you had over the last year? I mean, all these things are asked of us in the doctor's office, even though, like, for some of us, it doesn't even, like, no, I haven't done any of that. Like, why are you asking me these questions? Well, I think it's the same way when it comes to counseling, the beautiful, wonderful profession of counseling, that there ought to be, I believe, an assessment for domestic violence in everyone.
Okay.
You want to say anything else about that, or does
Nope.
that kind of?
That answers my questions. Question number 3, focusing on issues other than the abusive behavior allows the abusive behavior to continue.
Well, yeah, there's zero accountability. If the person is being, emotionally, psychologically, all these things are a way they're being abusive, verbally abusive. If there's no opportunity for that to be exposed, and certainly the person who's being victimized by this, there's so much coercive control until they've already been told behind closed doors, they know that they can't tell anybody this is happening. They can't tell because they're terrified of what will happen to them if they do when they get home. So therefore, there's literally no opportunity for the person who is indeed the survivor to let it be known in mixed company, if you will, that this is happening. There's no way, because they'd be subjected to too much further abuse. Yeah.
Do you know, and this is just a random thought, but in the classes that address the abuser. I forget what those classes are
Well,
called.
I think, well, the term that no one likes to hear is their batter intervention,
Batters
the
intervention.
batters
Yeah.
intervention. Mhm, mhm.
In those classes, do the batterers admit that they're abusive? Like in a counseling conversation, would the batterer admit that that is what they're working through, or does it take a long time before them to admit, call themselves an abuser and own that? Or do you know that?
I do know that.
Okay.
I do know that. Yeah. In most cases, for people that are taking or attending a batter's intervention, they're there because they've been court ordered to be there. So something bad has already happened that led them there, right? And then the handful of others are there voluntarily. They've already owned it. They've already admitted it. They already know it. They go sit in a room with everybody in a great big circle. And guess what? They all know that they've been abusive towards their partner. All of them already know it. Yeah,
Okay.
there's no hiding. It's all open, all transparent, and off we go. We're going to deal with this stuff. Yeah, no one's trying to deny it. Nobody's trying. I shouldn't say no one's trying to deny it. Somebody might be in there saying, man, I don't know why I'm in here. I didn't do it. That could be the case, right? But for
Well,
the most part, go ahead.
in a counseling situation, that probably is what happens, huh?
Oh, well, the denial.
Yeah, in a counseling situation where, because one of what we're saying is people shouldn't be in marriage counseling or coaching if they're in an abusive relationship, because they won't own the fact that they're an abuser in that setting.
Not only will they not own it, but it will probably never come up. You get it? Yeah, because the spouse is not going to bring it up because the spouse
Yeah.
knows better, right? So totally not going to bring it up, right? And if it were to come up, and if the counselor were to bring it up, they're still not going to. No, everything's fine. No,
Yeah.
that's not happening. So as much as we can go on with this conversation, and we probably will at a later date, we need to end it here. But we'll be back. We'll pick up where we left off. Okay. Take care, and until next time, see you later.